Do any of you know this book by Dr. Seuss?
Yeah. Which one?
Yeah? No? Well, for those who don't know, it's a story about a king who's dissatisfied with the types of weather that keep occurring, you know, rain, sunshine, wind, that sort of stuff.
You should have come to Melbourne.
He wants something new, something different, something exciting. So he commands his magicians to create something new, something different, something exciting, because after all, that's what kings do. The king's magicians do fulfill his wish in the form of a sticky green substance called oobleck. Oobleck falls from the sky, covering everything and everyone and creating chaos. The king's stubbornness and refusal to appreciate what he already had brought havoc to the land. The kingdom was in ruins. Everyone and everything was covered in the goo. But the moment that the king had finally said, "I'm sorry," the oobleck vanished, the mess cleaned up, peace was restored, and all was well in the world again. What a perfect Rosh HaShanah story. I can't help but think how the king's struggle to admit his wrongdoings mirrors the challenges some of us experience with repentance, teshuvah. By the way, oobleck is a real thing. It doesn't actually fall from the sky, but it is a real and fascinating substance. Now, I've made some to show you, and I need 2 volunteers, and I'm volunteering the 2 cantors. Rubbish bag, please. I'll bring one. Now, oobleck is just a mixture of corn flour and water, but I've coloured it green to match the story, okay? And Pam's sitting way over there because she thinks I'm going to throw it at somebody.
That's why I moved.
I know.
Do you also need masks?
No, you don't need masks. Okay. All right, oobleck is what's called a non-Newtonian fluid, something like quicksand. So, guys, see if you can grab a handful, but keep your hand over the thing. So, yep. And don't.
Well, that was fun.
A big handful.
It's gone solid.
Yeah,
There's liquid on top, but then it's solid underneath. It's like, I don't know, like a
Keep
nougat or
trying.
something.
So, Nathaniel,
Now move it around your fingers. You can see when you put some pressure on it, it acts like a solid. Those of you who are of a certain age would remember all the Tarzan movies and everything where people would get stuck in quicksand and they'd try and get out. And the harder they try, the less they can get out. But now if you hold the hot
anyone in
glue...
need of a facial? No volunteers?
Thank you, Cantor. But if you hold the oobleck in your hand still, it returns to its liquid form. So going back to the quicksand thing, if you ever get stuck in quicksand, you don't try and get out, you float on the top and you can come out. Thank you, guys.
Well, we're done.
You can keep playing if you like.
If my kids can.
For the parents and grandparents, really easy to make and it'll keep your kids quiet for hours. Pardon? Corn flour and water. Yeah. Oobleck is actually a great metaphor for this time of the Oobleck is a great metaphor for this time of the year when we're trying to balance our lives. Balance, scales, by the way, is the symbol of the month of Tishrei, where we are now. This yucky substance illustrates how we need to be both firm and flexible. While we absolutely need to stand firm in our values, our commitments and our ethics, There are times when we need to be flexible, to adapt to circumstances and to respond to other people's needs with gentleness. So when we were applying pressure, it behaved as a solid. When we let go, it behaved as a liquid and flowed again. Our tradition is pretty big on balance. In Pirkei Avot, for instance, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, the world stands on three things: din, justice; emet, truth; and shalom, peace. I love that image. It reminds me of a three-legged stool which is firm and stable. Remove one leg and the whole system collapses. Din, emet, and shalom. Din, justice, speaks to the firmness that we need to maintain our laws, our principles, and our values, even when, or perhaps especially when, they're difficult. Shalom, peace, and emet, truth, on the other hand, are flexible. Peace demands compromise, patience, and understanding, and truth requires us a level of self-awareness and a level of humility to be able to admit when we're wrong. At the heart of Bartholomew and the Oblek is the king's refusal to take responsibility, at least not until the very end of the story. His arrogance led to disaster, and it was only his apology that saved the day. As I said earlier, what an awesome metaphor for Teshuvah. Teshuvah usually translated but much more comfortable with its more lit translation, return, because I think that better describes what we're being asked to do at this time of year, to return to our true selves, our inner selves, to our core values, and to the principles that we may have neglected or strayed from time to time in the past year. Just as the king's apology cleansed the kingdom of Oblek, so our mess-ups require those difficult steps of admitting fault and seeking forgiveness. We can't move forward until we've said a genuine, heartfelt, and fulsome apology to others, to God, and even to ourselves. Speaking of the words, I'm sorry, does anyone remember the 1970 movie called Love Story with Ali McGraw and Ryan O'Neill? Do you remember its famous line? Love means never having to say you're sorry. Jennifer said it to Oliver when he apologised for his anger. And then at the end of the movie, Oliver said it to his father when he said, I'm sorry, when he heard about Jennifer's death. It's such a lovely line, isn't it? And it's such a lovely thought. If love is pure and unconditional, then apologies are surely unnecessary. But we only need to reflect on our own relationships for half a nanosecond to know that's not how real life works. Real love does require apologies. Real love does require saying sorry. Love isn't about perfection or never making mistakes. Love is about humility, vulnerability, and repair. Enter again the concept of Teshuvah, which is about taking responsibility for our actions. Teshuvah is an act of love, showing we have the power to repair what we've broken. I think it was Rabbi Nachum of Breslau who said, if you believe you can break, believe you can repair. That is, we each have the capacity for healing, for growth, and for transformation. Even when we make mistakes or feel completely broken by what's happening in our lives, in the world, and especially in Israel at the moment, we each have the power to mend and restore ourselves and our relationships with others and with the divine. Apologising is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength, a willingness to be fluid and open, especially when it's difficult to do so. Just a quick side trivia note. So Ryan O'Neill was in Love Story, 1970. 2 years later, he made What's Up, Doc?, a screwball comedy. Right at the end of the movie, Barbara Streisand says, batting her eyelids, "Love means never having to say you're sorry," to which Ryan O'Neill replies, "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard." It's the king's apology in the Dr. Seuss story that releases the kingdom from its sticky chaos. The words, "I'm sorry," seem simple, but as Elton John so eloquently and so beautifully put it, sorry is the hardest word to say. Why? Because like Oobleck, we harden under pressure. We dig in our heels. We become stubborn and resistant to change. And even the thought of admitting fault and apologising can be difficult. But if we're treated with gentleness by others and by ourselves, we can soften, adapt, and open ourselves to transformation. Words are always significant. What we say and how we say it matters. During Rosh HaShanah and Yom Kippur, our words carry an even deeper significance, with the words of our liturgy, especially those of the Unatane Tokef, reminding us of the possibility of redemption, recovery, and restoration. Teshuvah, tefillah, tzedakah, repentance, prayer, charity can avert the harsh decree. They're not ritualistic or formulaic words. They're a call to action, a call for us to realign our actions with our intentions. Divine justice might be absolute, but God, we're taught, is flexible, open to teshuvah. It's only when we respond to that call for action to approach life like Oobleck, knowing when to be strong and when to yield with humility, that we can regain balance. The king in Dr. Seuss's story finally realised it, but may we, every one of us, every day, as we step forward into the threshold of the new year, always be mindful of the importance of saying "I'm sorry" and of acknowledging our shortcomings. In this past year, where, when, and why were we too rigid? In this past year, where, when, and why did we let our pride or ego create chaos in our lives or in the lives of others? Just as the king's apology cleared the mess created by Oobleck, our sincere apologies to others, to God, and don't forget to ourselves, can help us erase or at least minimise the burden of any unresolved guilt we carry, allowing us to start the new year with a clean or cleaner slate. May we all enter this new year with hearts and minds that are less burdened and more flexible. May we be ready to embrace both the strength and the fluidity that life demands of us. And may you and those you care about have a sweet, healthy, peaceful and meaningful year. May 5785 be a better year for all. Shana Tova Umetuka.